We got some off-season Q&A with the Sourdough Squad. Obviously, we're going to be talking about San Francisco 49ers, OTAs, everything in between. They're still practicing down there in Santa Clara, but only one day open to the media. Everything else will be behind locked, closed doors. Top secret information going on down there in Santa Clara regarding San Francisco 49ers. You know what we're going to talk about. We got quarterback, we got all that type of stuff. So get your questions ready, drop them in the chat. You have an opportunity to drive the conversation today. Shout out to SDS. Shout out to Gang. Let's kick it off. Let's go. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. What is going down, Sourdough Squad? It's Thursday. I can't believe May's already almost over, man. Like, where is time going? Shout out to Gang. We see you guys. One of the greatest inside jokes ever. If you don't know what the heck we're talking about, man, you missed a good one. You missed a good one, but of course, if you were there for it, shout out to Gang. Shout out to SDS. Good to see the squad. If you see the puns everywhere, you know the vibes. That's right here on the SF Niners with the Sourdough Squad. See you guys out here. What's good, everybody? Oh, we got our first question. Joey says, "How's Graham Gang? Hope y'all doing good. Graham Gang's doing. We're thriving out here, man. My youngest, if you guys remember, he was born premature at 28 weeks. He's coming up on a year. It's coming up on a year. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. How time flies, man. Absolutely flying by. Ruben, Joey tied for the first question, basically. Having a great day so far. Yeah, man, I can't complain. Getting to be able to hop on here, talk San Francisco 49ers football with you guys, and we'll be able to just chop it up. I've gotten some good stuff recently. So I know we've been doing some film breakdowns. I don't think we're going to do a film breakdown today, but I got a lot of film on Penn State. So I think what I want to do pretty soon here is start diving into the rookies pretty deeply, because obviously since the draft we've been getting ready for OTAs. The conversation around the quarterbacks have been swirling, but I do want to get into more of the rookies. I got a lot of Penn State film, so I want to start breaking down some Jair Brown, because I do think he will be a guy that will be active out here for the San Francisco 49ers. I think Jesus says, why do you say so much? Because my brain be tweaking. That's why. shout out shout out to the squad, man. I know you're playing. Um I know you're playing drops an organic right after it. See what happens? The mind triggers. It's just boom, boom, boom. Uh, kind of tired of talking about quarterbacks. Yeah, man. I think we're all tired of talking about quarterbacks. This goes back for a long time, man. But the the quarterback conversation just keeps going, dude. There's more stuff continuing to come out. I don't know if you guys saw, I think it was Larry Krueger had Matt Barrows on. Obviously, Matt Barrows broke the story with Trey Lance and the whole quarterback workout with Patrick Mahomes and everything from that. But Matt Barrows also said that he asked Jeff Christensen, who was Trey Lance's quarterback coach, like, who set that up? Like, who put that together? And he respectfully declined to answer that question. And I do find that to be interesting, just because we do know, since the 49ers have been in the business of getting a quarterback, it's been well documented that the San Francisco 49ers have a specific group of offseason trainers that they send their quarterbacks to, specifically Trey Lance. We do know, like, Trey Lance had, I think it was Quincy Avery and I forget his other quarterbacks coach's name, who I've spoken to multiple times. I actually got to meet him at the combine. Um, he had his pre-draft coaches. Then when he was drafted by the San Francisco 49ers, he went down to LA with John Beck and all those guys. And so he kind of went down with and has been working. But now he's working with Jeff Christensen. It's interesting. I think the whole quarterback thing is crazy. It's a little bit just it just keeps going there. Every day feels like something else comes out about it. Something we got Chris Sims doing his quarterback rankings. Trey Lance doesn't even make the top 40 quarterbacks in the NFL. It's there's every day. Every day we got something new about the quarterbacks. It's crazy, man. So I don't know if we're going to get any other OTA coverage because I'm pretty sure there's only 9 days of OTAs. I think that's what it is. I think it's 9 days. I don't have the schedule in front of me. I know there's also a mini camp, mandatory mini camp in the middle of June. But so we might get some coverage from the mandatory mini camp, but OTAs, we got as about as much coverage as we're going to get. So it's gonna be a long off season. There's gonna be a lot more hypotheticals. There's gonna be a lot more, situations regarding everything. But I think at the end of the day, Brock Purdy is gonna be quarterback one. I feel pretty confident in that. Like, even if I like Trey, and even if I don't have any bad feelings really for Sam Darnold, I did think it was interesting that Sam was still fumbling, because we did see him fumble twice on that tape that we watched against Tampa. Remember we talked about that? And we're like, one, it's gonna happen. We had two, then in OTAs, he fumbled a snap as well. So um a big right there. But at the end of the day, I think it's Brock Purdy quarterback one, and then it's the real competition is for quarterback two, and I think it would really take Trey Lance just wowing everyone with with his process. I think to be able to win that job. I think it's an uphill battle for Trey. I think the opportunity is there for him to do it, but for that to happen, he would have to go lights out. He would have to almost be a different version of himself, if that makes any sense. So, training camp gonna be interesting. Boomerat says, Brad, will you ever do defensive film review? Yes, we will do defensive film review. I think I'm gonna take a break from the quarterbacks. I think we're feeling pretty good for the quarterbacks. We have a long summer, like we said. I want to do Jair Brown film breakdown of his Penn State tape. We can also do 49ers defensive film breakdown. So I definitely want to do that. Gav says, Brad, is it this season or bust for Juice to win a Super Bowl on the 49ers? That's actually a good question. Obviously, the San Francisco 49ers brought in Coletto from Oregon State. I was a big Luepke guy from North Dakota State to kind of come in and maybe be that kind of juice in training. But it does feel like Jack Coletto will be that guy who gets the opportunity. He'll probably be a practice squad guy. He'll come back around, but I think who was it? Josh Hockett, I think before. The 49ers had Josh Hockett in training camp for a couple years just to kind of be that backup secondary type fullback. And he had some promise, but it looks like they're getting ready for maybe the potential end of the Kyle Juszczyk era. Kyle's not getting any younger. He's 33 years old. Was it this year? No, he's 32. Okay, so he's 32 this year. There's a potential out in his contract next year. So after this year, the 49ers have an opportunity to get out of his contract. If they don't and they opt in 2024, Kyle Juszczyk will have a $7.5 million cap hit in back-to-back years where he'll be 33 and 34. So I would say that this is the best year right now for Kyle Juszczyk to get his ring because I think we're going to start to see these kinds of roster situations play out with like some of our top players, whether it's Trent Williams, Kyle Juszczyk. It's going to be interesting to see how the 49ers manage George Kittle and everything like that when they start to get to this point in their contracts because we know the 49ers have before kind of gotten ahead of those things. So it would be interesting to see. I would say that this year is definitely going to be his best opportunity for sure. Yes, my room does have a ceiling fan, and I'm sure you can see it right there. Hopefully, it's not too annoying for you guys. Peter said, Brad, did you see Jimmy G's foot injury still persisting in Las Vegas? OTA delay. I did see that. Jimmy Garoppolo is still hurt. Had to have surgery in March. Obviously, there's a lot of conversations about Jimmy Garoppolo. It did seem like he was potentially going to be available to play in that NFC Championship game. That's kind of where Kyle set the mark for him potentially being able to come back. And it felt like it was going to be a poetic type situation. I really did. It's like Jimmy's going to come back. I think we even talked about it. Like we joked about it, that situation. Like Brock's going to start. Jimmy's going to come dress and he's going to come back and he's going to be the backup. Brock is going to get hurt. Jimmy's going to come in and win the game. Then he's going to take him to the Super Bowl and he's going to win the Super Bowl. Like we joked about that. That almost happened. Could you imagine if that actually happened? If the San Francisco 49ers, Brock Purdy gets hurt in that NFC Championship game, Jimmy Garoppolo comes in, wins the game, and then takes them to the Super Bowl and wins the Super Bowl. And that's how Jimmy Garoppolo ends his career. Would have been poetic, but unfortunately, it feels like it ended kind of the most, Jimmy Garoppolo way possible, just not being able to be available. And, the team crashed and burned in the biggest game of the year as a result because they didn't have a quarterback. So all four of their quarterbacks were knocked out. Just absolutely just terrible luck. And he apparently still hurt. He had to have surgery in March on his foot again. And that was after he didn't pass the physical and the Raiders still signed him. So interesting. Hey, what's good, Paul? We got Paul checking in from the UK. What's up, gang? Gang. Terradome says, outstanding, informative, impartial film breakdown of Brock versus Miami the other day, Brad. That's all anyone can ask. The eye in the sky don't lie. Appreciate you, Terradome. Glad you liked that film breakdown. One of the things that I've noticed kind of hopping around from Trey Lance to Brock Purdy to Sam Darnold, Brock has some pretty easy film to break down. Like it's very fluid. He I also think like we obviously watched Brock in a vacuum of what Brock was doing, and we're like, yeah, this looks really good. When you start comparing it to guys like Trey and you start comparing it to guys like Sam Darnold, because we've just been kind of bouncing around, I feel like it's even given me a greater sense of like, man, what Brock was doing was pretty solid. Again, he wasn't perfect. There's plenty of room for improvement with what Brock has to do. But when you start comparing it, like Trey Lance's second game versus Brock Purdy's first game as a rookie, like you could tell even then Brock was pretty far ahead of where Trey was, like as a processor and things like that. And so I can totally understand why the 49ers right now are bought in on Brock, why Brock has earned it from a locker room standpoint, from a gameplay standpoint. He's done it. So I understand it. And again, I don't want roster politics to be involved. So I don't want Trey to get the job just because he was the number 3 overall pick. And I don't think the 49ers are going to do that. I think they're going to give it to the guy that they think has earned it, and I think they believe that Brock has earned it. And again, just looking at the tape and everything that I've seen, I would have to agree. I would have to agree. Brock has earned it, and it's for his play. It's for his ability. It's for his ability on the field. I know we make a lot of all the off-field stuff and all the always comes back to the trade and what you gave up for him. And so it changes a lot of the perception, but when you really just watch the tape, I think it's easy to see why they're leaning with Brock. Terradome says, I love Trey Lance. I want the best for him, but Brock isn't no ordinary rookie quarterback. Again, just because we see why Brock is probably going to get the job has nothing to do with Trey. In like directly, like indirectly, it does, but it's just the way the cookie crumbles, man. It's just we're it's a tough spot for Trey. We talked about this, I think, yesterday on the film breakdown. Like we're getting to that point where the 49ers are gonna have to make a decision here really soon on Trey Lance's 5th-year option. And that if you had to ask me, are they gonna pick up Trey Lance's 5th-year option? I would say no. So if they're not gonna pick up Trey Lance's 5th-year option and Brock Purdy is gonna be the quarterback and they like Sam Darnold that much, again, it's just like so much just swirling around about this stinking quarterback situation. But it's like if Brock's the guy and you're not going to pick up Trey Lance's 5th-year option, maybe it would be best for both these guys to just Trey and the 49ers just to go their separate ways. If you can maybe get something for Trey in return, I think I kind of said this the other day. It's like I really do think Trey is gonna find success in the NFL, but it's not gonna be with the 49ers. I just don't at this point with Brock and the belief in Brock and kind of Trey Lance's trajectory up until this point, and then having to make those tough roster decisions about a year or two from now, there might be a world that is becoming a reality where we're going to watch Trey Lance have the best years of his career on another team. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. I know a lot of people don't want to rationalize that. And it has nothing to do with Trey or going against Trey or anything like that. But it's just from a roster building standpoint. It's really what it is. It's just a roster building standpoint. If Purdy's the guy, you kind of reset that rookie clock because now you're going to get Brock Purdy on what, year 2 of his rookie contract. You have Trey Lance right now going to year 3. And if Brock Purdy sticks through as quarterback 1, I still think you keep Trey this year. I think you got to keep Trey this year. I think you start having those other conversations of maybe Trey Lance playing elsewhere if Brock like totally totally uh, takes that QB1 job. And it's clear that the 49ers are moving forward with Brock as that guy. And with Trey Lance's 5th-year option still available, maybe a team would want to get him in their system to be able to evaluate for 1 year and then potentially pick up his 1 year, his 5th-year option. So there's this whole roster construction building aspect to it. But I would say what's best for the 49ers right now is I would keep all 3 quarterbacks in 2023. I would keep Trey, I would keep Brock, and I would keep Sam just because we've seen how volatile that position is in regards to injuries, and we've seen how just that position alone can derail the 49ers. I mean, they got lucky last year by being able to go from Trey to Jimmy to Brock, but once Brock was out, it was really tough. So it's going to be interesting to see, even if you got the new quarterback Brandon Allen, if he's going to be able to stay on the practice squad. If they bring him back around to the practice squad, that way they have 4 quarterbacks like consistently on the roster. That's kind of where I'm looking at it right now. I think the 49ers would be best suited to keep all 3, even 4 quarterbacks as long as they can. I really do. You just don't know. Just don't know. But there's going to be a lot of questions. I don't think the quarterback questions are going to end this season. I really don't. I think we're going to kind of be talking about this stuff for a year or 2. Gav says, Brad, is Jason Poe making the team this year? I think he has a shot, but I also think he has an uphill battle because the 49ers have brought in some pretty solid talent with Feliciano. I think Feliciano is absolutely making the roster. It feels like right now that Zakel might have the jump on Jason Poe. He did have the draft capital put into him being a 6th-round pick out of Fordham. I think they view him potentially as like maybe the center of the future, maybe a guy that they just want to kind of keep who can play guard and has center versatility. But this will be a big training camp. This will be a big training camp for Jason Poe. 100%. And I think that's one of the battles right there. Jason Poe, Nick Zakel, because I think Feliciano is going to be locked on this roster. Even just from what I saw of Feliciano in bag drills from some of the clips that some of the guys have posted, like I could see the power that Feliciano has. And I could see how Feliciano and with the 49ers they still are an outside zone team, but they'll run a lot of inside zone. They run a lot of gap scheme, and Feliciano fits that mold. And at worst case scenario, Feliciano is going to be, I think, your number 1 primary interior backup offensive lineman. It's not sounding great for Jalen Moore. It sounds like I heard Jalen Moore was potentially lining up at 3rd string behind Pryor, the free agent tackle that they brought in. So it's not looking good. Not sounded too hot for Jalen Moore, man. I mean, at one point, Jalen Moore was looking like he was going to be a player that the 49ers could potentially rely on in the future. And, he had an up and down season last year, really, really bad sequence against the Denver Broncos. Then the Panthers. He had a decent game against the Panthers. He did okay. But if he's coming out in camp or OTAs and he's third on the depth chart already. Not good. Not great. Jason Poe might be another guy from a roster construction standpoint that you have the flexibility that maybe they know they're going to be able to get him back on the practice squad. But again, they only typically carry 8 offensive linemen, so it's uphill battle. Leroy Watson, I think that's his name. Why do I feel like when I say that I'm not? No, that's right. Leroy Watson, former teammate of jeez, man. It's one of those days apparently. Former teammate of, my gosh, what is happening to my brain? This is worse than Umgate. This is worth Burford. Spencer Burford. What is happening to me? My brain has apparently entered full phase 4 of the offseason mode. They're like, Spencer Burford, who? Leroy Watson, I think, has jumped Jalen Moore at this point, at least from what we're hearing. So again, offensive line is going to be I really do think Feliciano and Burford are going to be battling. I really do. I think it's going to be crazy. Are you worried about Jake Moody misses an OTAs? I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? It's a double-edged sword because again, the cautionary tale that we provided when Jake Moody was selected number 3 overall. Excuse me, not number 3 overall. Jeez, it's one of those days. When Jake Moody was drafted in the 3rd round, when you draft a kicker in the 3rd round, it's like taking a quarterback number 3 overall in regards to the expectations. Is when you're drafting a kicker in that particular round, it is to be like a 15-year starter. Like you're like, we are confident that not only is he the best kicker in this class, but he's going to be a 15-year starter. He's going to be future Hall of Famer. It's kind of like when you draft a quarterback 1, 2, or 3 that high, the expectations are blue chip, Hall of Fame type player. You take a kicker, you're transferring that pressure onto him. And now, granted, kickers are supposed to be able to manage. They're supposed to be able to manage that pressure. That's really, I think, what separates the good kickers from the not so good kickers, because at a certain level, they can all kick the ball. It's how do you manage the pressure situations when the game's on the line, you're in poor conditions, and the whole stadium's down, like coming down on you, and you got to make this kick to be able to keep the game alive or win the game, et cetera, et cetera. So I also saw conflicting reports too. I'm gonna go ahead and I'll take Mayoko's report that both Zane Gonzalez and Jake Moody missed. I think it was from 48 yards out in OTAs. I think they kicked 4 or 5 from different depths. They kept moving backwards. Both Jake Moody and Gonzalez made the same kicks, and they missed the same kick. I think it was at distance at 48. So it's one practice. So I'm not going to freak out too much. But again, one of the things that I've learned about covering the NFL is you really want to build that early positive perception. The early positive perception can last you a long time. Think about Jalen Hurd. What Jalen Hurd did in the preseason game against the Cowboys probably bought him 2 extra seasons because he went crazy against the Cowboys, but he broke his back in that game and could just never get on the field and just was always hurt. But I really do believe that being able to see that and being able to also have that perception bought him a longer leash. I think if you ball out early on, I think it buys you a longer leash. So, at least from like a perception standpoint. So, the biggest thing I think with Jake is obviously, yeah, you want him to be better in practice, but when we get to preseason, if he's banging all his kicks through the uprights, and if he makes, like, let's say a big kick week 1, week 2, that's what Jake needs to get the confidence in the fan base, kind of get that perception in that, like, all right, we made the good decision. You get that early on. That will buy him time, opposed to missing an early kick, and people are gonna freak out, right? People are gonna freak out. So I'm not too worried about it. Obviously, yes, you wanna hit those kicks, but it's OTAs. Let's wait till preseason. Let's wait till week 1, week 2, week 3, and we'll then really start to we'll kinda have a better idea of how we want to really view Jake Moody moving forward. That's where my head's at least. I saw the report and I was like, oh, that's again where my thought process is at. Is you want to hear the reports that he's making everything so that we can feel the instant gratification, like, okay, we made the right pick. And then you hear that he missed it, and you're like, oh, that's not instant gratification. That's not what we were looking for when we took him number 3. And again, it's practice, so I'm gonna take it with a grain of salt. But it just comes down to, I think, really, what is our perception of the pick, and can we rationalize the pick ultimately at the at the end of the day. Do I believe any of the index finger excuses? I do. I mean, I could imagine the index finger, man, when you're throwing that ball, they're so that's one of the magic fingers. Like, I mean, you're grabbing the football, and really this relation to holding a football, like, you put these 3, I do 3 on laces. But, I mean, and you gotta flick it and then flick your wrist down to get that spin on it. I don't think I have a football around here. And if you're not familiar, I'm definitely an armchair quarterback. We get out here, we run if we running any routes on air or anything like that, I got dimes for days, baby. We are cooking. So I am disqualified to talk about pro football, throwing mechanics and things like that. Um, but yeah, you need that, boy. Oh, baby. Especially with how you grip that football, how you flick it and you rip it. Gotta get it. Ah. Hey, shout out my boy. Shout out the head sourdough scout himself. Just appreciate you, my boy. Thank you for that. He says, just hitting you with the late happy birthday super chat. Thank you, man. Shout out Justin. What a legend. Chat legend. Sourdough Squad OG. The head director of the Sourdough Scouts. I mean, I don't know what other title we can give this guy. Absolutely chat legend. Thank you, Justin. I really do appreciate that, man. What a legend, man. Appreciate you, brother. My guy dropping a 50 piece on me. Let's go. Shout out my guy. Hey, that helps a lot, baby. You know, these off-season times for some of us a little rough out here, so we appreciate that, man. Absolutely. Thank you, brother. But what we're talking about the index finger on Trey Lance. Is that a big issue? I do think it was an issue. I mean, they continue to talk about it. They're still talking about it. That was 2 years ago now, almost. They're still talking about it. So I would imagine it was a big issue. But I don't think that's the only issue. if that makes sense. Like Trey Lance clearly wasn't where the 49ers wanted him to be. I think for all the discourse around Trey Lance and all the like people picking sides and this and that and whatever, I think when we boil it down, I don't think the 49ers loved where Trey Lance was at in just that kind of preliminary process. Remember, Kyle said it at that event, the Golden Heart Fund event, where he talked about the quarterbacks in depth for a really long time. He point blank said, "You don't come to the NFL to learn how to throw." And I remember he said that because he was just he wasn't talking about like Trey directly. It was like an indirect comment, if that makes sense. Like it wasn't about Trey, but he slipped it in there. He's like, "You don't come to the NFL to learn how to throw." And I was just like, well, according to what we've learned from, this situation is that Trey wasn't in that spot where he was throwing at that NFL caliber level. And there's a lot of adjustments that needed to happen. I was like, you said it, Kyle. I was like, you don't come to the NFL to learn how to throw. And we're in year 3 and Trey's still learning. So is there a disconnect there? Is the injuries compounding on top of where he was at already? Probably. So it's an interesting time. It's an interesting time. So many things about this whole quarterback thing. I'm going to keep trying to go back to the questions. I should start starring these questions as they come in so I don't have to keep hunting for them. Let's see. Is this the year we go a full season with a healthy quarterback? My gosh, I am praying to the football gods. I am praying to the football gods. The last time the San Francisco 49ers had a quarterback go the whole season, they went to the Super Bowl. Now, is there any relation to quarterback being healthy? Probably not, but I need it. I have to have it. And honestly, like I hope so. Gosh, I hope so. Everyone needs to send a special prayer to the football gods. Just please bless us with healthy quarterbacks. We'll handle the rest. Just please, at this particular stage, just look down and bless us with just healthy quarterbacks. Just that's all we ask for. Just health, please. Health is the number one right now. My thoughts on Isaiah Oliver. I haven't seen him, obviously, in a 49er jersey. I've seen like a clip of him. But the 49ers are very high on him. And they've made that abundantly clear multiple times. And it does sound like Isaiah Oliver is coming in to be the starting nickel. So that's my anticipation, is that Isaiah Oliver will be our starting nickel. Samuel Womack will have an opportunity to be able to compete for that spot, but it does feel like Womack has an ability to play outside and inside. He'll kind of be that primary backup cornerback and primary special teamer. Oliver, they got him for cheap. They got him for a steal of a deal, and they clearly think very highly of him. So he has an opportunity to come in. Sounds like he'll be the starting nickel. That's going to be a guy that I'm going to want to see more in training camp. How many playoff wins does Brock Purdy have? He's got 2, right? He beat Seattle. He beat Dallas. Seattle, Dallas, Philly. Didn't Poe play fullback in college? No. He put out like a clip in the pre-draft process that he like was running like routes out of the backfield, like he could play fullback. But I don't think he did. He could have, but I could be wrong on that, but I really don't think he did. I think it was just that pre-draft hype video he put out where he's like, I could be your center or I could be your fullback. Coach, what's good, coach? He says Il Manning is the center of the future. I haven't really got my eyes on him. I'm excited to see what he looks like. I'm hearing a lot of good things about Ronnie Bell. I started to see some Ronnie Bell, like, kind of working through some of the individual drills, and like you could see, he got some swag to him. Like some of, and when I say swag, I'm not talking about drip. I'm not talking about like, oh, he dresses nice. Like you can get an idea like right away sometimes of like that guy looks like a player. And just the way he attacked the ball, went up and snagged it. I was like, okay. I mean, again, you can find contextual evaluation for everything if you know what you're evaluating. Like just because he caught a nice ball in an individual drill doesn't mean that necessarily translates, but I can see, I'm like, okay. Sometimes guys look super rigid. Sometimes guys you can tell that the energy isn't there. Like he was like, I was like, we'll see how that looks like in training camp. But he could be a guy for sure. Let's see. What's up with Isaiah Winstead? Haven't heard anything in OTAs about him. Did he show up or get cut already? Again, I think this is just when you're that bottom guy on the depth chart and you've got 12, 13 wide receivers in camp. I think it's just hard to get reps sometimes. I remember that last year with Tay Martin, like in training camp. Like Tay Martin barely saw the field at the beginning of training camp. It was just like it was almost because he was a guy that I liked as an undrafted free agent, and I had my eye on him, and I was like, man, he can't even get reps. Can't even get on the field. He earned those reps, and he actually earned being elevated to the active roster, I think 3 times last year. But I'm sure it's the same with Isaiah, man. And it was one practice, and you're going to have guys like Bell in front of him, Chris Conley in front of him, Danny Gray. All those guys are going to be in front of Winstead at this point. So Winstead's going to start at the back, and he's going to have to chip away to earn more reps. That's kind of the way I've noticed uh, that these training camps over the last couple of years is like if you're on the back of your position group, boy, you got to chip. You just got to chip every day. You're not always going to get reps. You're not always going to get opportunities. You just got to keep chipping away. So we'll see with Isaiah. It could have just really came down to he didn't get those opportunities. Let's see. I'm gonna. How many spots are open for the roster? There's 53 active, 46 dress on game day. Right now, we have the 90-man roster filled, so they're going to have to cut from 90 to 53. God, it's going to be a bloodbath, man. I think it's only one day now. Before they used to have levels to like it was 90 to 75, and then I think there was another leg where it was like 75 to 60, then it was like 60 to 53. From my understanding now, it's going to be one cut day. I think you carry 90 all the way throughout, and then you go from 90 to 53 in a blink of an eye. And then all of a sudden, there's like 3,000 new free agents on the open market. It's going to be wild, man. Something crazy like that. So right now, they have a full 90-man roster, and then it's going to be cut down to Fitty Tree. What's this say? Alberto says, look, Brad, you're wrong with Purdy starting. I believe he knows he's not 100% to come back on time. They want to rush him back. And Trey 110% ready, healthy, and no OTA for Purdy. Definitely not starting. I really don't think, and I have no problems with you telling me I'm wrong. I, you know, we all have our opinions, and that's perfectly fine. And you are definitely able to have your own, just as I am able to have my own. But really, I think what it comes down to is I think one of your points of him being ready for OTAs, I don't think that matters. Uh, OTAs are really, in my opinion, more kind of an install period, more acclimation period, more kind of meetings, kind of getting those types of things out of the way. There's no pads. There, it's they have like rules against contact, how hard they go, how long they work. I don't hold OTAs in that high of a regard. So I don't think that would have any impact really to that situation. Um, I think it, I think, but that also to also say I'm not discrediting OTAs. I still think OTAs hold value, they hold weight. It just comes down to how much contextual weight do you put into it to have to say that Purdy isn't going to start just because he wasn't a part of OTAs. I don't agree. I don't respectfully agree with that. Um, Trey is 110% right now. They want to, what did else he say? He knows he's not 100%. Well, he's not 100%, but from everything that I'm hearing, he is ahead of schedule. So, yes, he's not 100% yet, but the fact that he's ahead of schedule and is going to start throwing in a week, it's pretty good. And if Brock is actively a part of training camp, then we're good. Like, we're good. If I would say if Brock's not 100% by OTAs, then I think that's where you can be a little bit more hesitant about Brock starting for sure. If he's not available at the start of training camp, then I think those questions are valid. But I think right now it's way too early from everything that we're hearing. It sounds like Brock is on track. So we'll see. And I think with Trey, it's like Trey's not only I think the first battle for Trey is not against Brock. I think the first battle for Trey is to keep Sam off his back. I think that's where Trey is right now. I think Trey is because you have people within that organization just lifting up Sam. Everyone around who's connected to this team is lifting up Sam. So for Trey, I think his first battle is to make sure Sam doesn't take his job versus him taking Brock's job. That's where I think step one is. Once Trey can keep Sam backed off, then he will have an opportunity to compete for QB1. And I think he'll have a shot, but it will be Brock's job first. And we'll see how it goes from there. But respectfully, appreciate the comment. But kind of agree to disagree on that particular one. Which I'm also way behind on the question, so I'm trying to catch up because we are doing Q&A. So if you're asking a question, I'm going to try to answer it. Which do you think is more likely? Colton at right tackle, Burford kicked out with Felicio on right guard. They love Colton, man. Colton's going to be your right tackle. I think they have way more confidence right now in Colton at right tackle than kicking Burford out to right tackle. I think it's Colton. Colton's a lock at right tackle. I know there's a theory that Burford's going to get kicked to right tackle to put Feliciano at right guard and get your best five. But I think the 49ers like Colton. And I think Colton's for them to like be that confident to not draft a tackle, to really not bring in anyone. They brought in Pryor, but it's a journeyman that I don't think you really want more as kind of like a swing tackle. I think Colton's pretty locked in right there. But again, that can change. We'll see. I don't think it can. I really don't think it can. I don't think Gonzalez can beat out Moody. I just don't think you can. You can't carry two kickers on the roster. Oh man. I think that's a roster politic one right there. I think that's where roster politics wins out. Is you have to you invested at this point. You invested into Moody. You got to see that through, man. You got to see that through, no matter what. I their call. I think it's gonna be packaged as a competition, right? Because also they don't wanna just give the rookie the job. They wanna kinda push him a little bit, create some early pressure, early on, and, make him work for it, which I'm all for. But in the back of everyone's mind, I don't think there's any way Zane Gonzalez can win that job. Not at all, man. I don't think he can do that. If Brock is back by training camp, does Trey even get a chance to be the guy? To me, he doesn't. I think he gets a chance if Brock struggles. I think that's one of the things that we think is like Brock is going to come back and be fine, and we don't know. Like we don't know. Maybe Brock is dealing with some like lingering confidence issues from like maybe physically he's fine, but maybe we start to see him kind of have a little bit of confidence or lack of confidence in his arm because it's surgically repaired. Maybe that something like that pokes through. I really think for Trey, like he has to be playing at the highest level, and Brock has to maybe kind of take a step back, and then that would even the playing field. But I do think it's an uphill battle for Trey right now. I do. I think there's I think anything's true. If Trey Lance comes in and we see like glimpses of rookie Trey Lance training camp on steroids, then absolutely he'll have a shot. If you get rookie Trey Lance training camp on steroids, yeah, he would have a shot to compete with Brock. But like that's where Trey's at. Trey's got to come in cooking, man. Like I don't think there's any room for any middling quarterback play. If Trey wants to win this job, he's got to come out and cook. He's got to cook Sam first, but then he's got to cook the rest. And it's going to be an uphill battle, but there's a sliver of hope that he could do that, but it'll be fascinating, man. How do I feel about Shanahan and Purdy seemingly being on different pages regarding his return timeline? I don't think they're on. I think they're on the same page. I do. I think it all comes down to public perception. I think they're trying to set a tone publicly, and Brock was trying really hard to stay on that track, even if there's a little bit of like maybe fibbing involved, not being ultra honest, like because he wasn't. It felt like he was less open. You know, I mean, Kyle's gonna say what he's gonna say. Like he doesn't care. Like at a certain point, and I think Brock is still, Brock's a genuine guy. Brock's an honest guy. He's not gonna want to lie to anyone. So that's why I felt like Brock was just more like, I'm just not gonna talk about it. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm just not gonna with divulge any information because I I really do think that it is more based on just sending an expectation to the public than anything else. I think they're on the same page. I don't think they're off, to be honest. I think it's just more they're trying to make sure they're saying the same things, trying to be in lockstep with the timing, making sure that they're trying to say the same things, even if they're not trying to divulge information. I think Lynch was the one who was the most honest at the owners' meetings. I think Lynch was the most honest. I think he spilled the beans a little bit. He was like, "Oh yeah, Brock's going to be back by training camp." And Kyle was like, "No, he's not. Nope. Week 1, week 4." And again, it just changes the target point for public perception. That's all that it is. Brock is probably still on track for training camp. But if public perception believes it's week 1 through week 4, they've already rationalized that. They've already logged it. It's already like common knowledge. And if Brock can't be available for week 1 through week 4, no one bats an eye at it. It's if they said, oh, well, he'd be back for training camp. And if, okay, Brock's not ready for training camp, like, oh, he had a setback, or he's not available for week 1. Well, they said he was going to be available for training camp. He must be having a real setback. I think it's all just about perception. It's all just about perception. And I think it's about them being on the same page with that tone of what the outward perception about his injury should be. Opinion on Vern, the turtle from the hit Pixar movie Over the Hedge. Boy, I know my kids have watched that movie. I don't know if I've really watched that movie like intently, because I know a lot of Pixar movies. I watch a lot of Pixar movies. Very much so, more than I like to admit. But Vern is just like, I see the silhouette of his like, he's not standing out to me though. You could ask me other Pixar questions. I probably have better answer for you. But Over the Hedge isn't one that is in my Rolodex of time to watch a kids movie. It's on from time to time, but it's not a part of the rotation. That's for sure. Let's see. Who will be LB3? I like this question. I really think it's Oren Burks. Oren Burks is going to be your LB3. But I think it's going to be, I think there's going to be competition. And I think DFF and Marcelino are going to be the ones pressing the most. I think Jalen Graham and D Winters obviously are going to be involved in that competition as well. But I really do think it's Oren Burks' job, at least to start. Heading into training camp, it's going to be Oren Burks. When Aziz went out last year, it was Oren Burks who stepped into that role. Oren is an underrated linebacker. I really like Oren. OB, as Flan called him. I like OB a lot. I think he's a top special teamer in the league, and he's proved to be serviceable at linebacker as well. So I really think it's going to be OB this year, but I think OB's contract runs out after this year, so they're kind of prepping for that. They're prepping for OB and Flan to potentially be gone as free agents, and then you're going to have Marcelino, D Winters, and Jalen Graham to kind of be the three behind Warner and Greenlaw. So that's kind of how I see it right now. But I like that question. Does Sam Womack make a Hufanga type leap this year to year 2, or does he play the bench for another year? I think he has the potential, but it does sound like they love Isaiah Oliver. I do think Samuel Womack possesses a lot of talent. I thought Womack was going to be our starting nickel last year because you had Jimmy Ward at safety, but Jimmy Ward got hurt. Gip came in. Was Womack starting? I think so. Or was it Demo? I don't know. That's actually a good question. Who was starting when Jimmy Ward was hurt? Because when Jimmy Ward came back, he went to nickel. But I do like Samuel Womack. I think he has a lot of potential, especially at nickel. But it does sound like they like Isaiah Oliver quite a bit. Do I believe the right tackle situation has been resolved? Yeah, I do. I think they feel very confident with Colton McKivitz for sure. What would a good year look like for Jair Brown? I think a good year for Jair Brown would be like playing 70% of the snaps, 60 to 70% of the snaps. Like 50 tackles, a couple tackle for losses, forced fumbles, things like that. Maybe a pick or two. Just a good year is making sure he fits into the speed of the NFL game. And as long as he steps in and it doesn't look like it's too fast for him, I think that's a good step, because I do think he has the opportunity to be able to take over and be the main guy for Gip after this year. Maybe even this year. Maybe even this year. That's what will happen. So we'll see. Tell me why I'm right to be so high on Braden Willis. I mean, I think Braden Willis is gonna. I don't. Again, I haven't seen anything from him from OTAs or really anything to have this opinion, but like I have this gut feeling that Braden Willis is going to kind of be the guy that we rely on as a rookie tight end. And he's going to be the guy that actually makes some big plays down the stretch. I just have this gut feeling. I don't have it's baseless gut feeling. It's just my gut feels things about football players sometimes, and that's what my big old gut is telling me. So we shall see. We shall see. Feel like I've seen Jack Hammer and Larry Kruger down a little bit on D Winters from rookie minicamp and OTAs. Any concerns? I mean, I have to take their word for it. I don't, I can't see it. I'm also kind of stubborn too, because I really like to make my own opinions on players. Like, of course, like we'll listen to other people's opinions and like, you know, what do you have to say? But I'm also not shy of just being like, I hear what you're saying, but I kind of see it a little differently. So if that's how they feel, I kind of got to take their word for it. I won't honestly be able to judge until I get to training camp myself. But I got to just take their word for it at this point. And hey, I trust them enough, but I always like to kind of make my opinions off of what I've seen personally. Uh, how does Drake Jackson look? From what I've seen, he looks massive. He looks huge. So I think Drake could be a big, big person to watch to have a big year next year. So I'm really looking for Drake Jackson. Did Joey Fisher last all of OT? Again, it's a good question. It's probably not a question for me because I wasn't there, but I didn't hear that he didn't, so I guess that's a good thing, right? Okay, I'm trying to catch up to some of your questions that you guys are asking. With the third quarterback added, doesn't the game day roster go to 54 and 47? I don't think so. I mean, technically, yes, but the whole point is he doesn't count against the roster. So it's still 53 and 46, but they just have this like ghost quarterback position. I mean, you could say it's but that's the thing. I don't think maybe not every team carries a third quarterback. So I think it's still 53-46, but they just now have this kind of ghost quarterback role now. Uh, Nugs in 6. The Nuggies taking it all. Shout out the Nugs for sweeping the Lakers. Needed that. How does this quarterback battle affect LeBron's legacy? Bro, just wait until LeBron comes to the Warriors. Then we'll talk about his legacy. How do I feel about Brock and Shanahan? I feel pretty good. Again, the biggest thing for me with Brock is just how does he rebound? Like what does he look like? Does he take steps back? Does he look like the same old Brock Purdy? If he does, I think the 49ers are in a good spot. I think Kyle is happy because he has a guy that he can actually coach. I think Brock is Kyle Shanahan proof. I think Kyle Shanahan is a very specific type coach, and he's very hard on coaches or on quarterbacks. And I think that's one of the things that Trey's kind of unfortunately had to deal with as a young kind of developing guy is Kyle is not shy of, just doing his coaching style, which I don't think is a one size fits all for every type of quarterback. But I do think that Brock is Kyle proof. I do think that. I do think I do think Brock is Kyle proof. Brock can take the heat and I think be fine. And actually I think Brock can also kick it back at Kyle a little bit. Oh, we got some super chats. Didn't even see. Justin says, any word on Kinlaw, or is he written off already? I would say he's written off by the fan base. I don't think I don't think the team has written him off yet. I really don't. I know they didn't pick up his 5th-year option, which I agree with that move. I don't think they should have picked up his 5th-year option. But I'm also not out on Kinlaw yet, because if Kinlaw, it just comes back to the same old story. Is if Kinlaw can just be healthy, I think he can be more than capable interior offensive lineman or defensive lineman. I really do. I think he can. We just know what it is. He's just been dealing with the knee issue, and I think that has affected him. I don't think, I think he had to work through some things to get back last year. If we get Kinlaw back, I don't know, maybe is it, I mean, he's looking lean. He's looking lean too. So I don't know if that's the answer, trying to take the weight off of Kinlaw and just building up strength. And I don't know, but I haven't written off Kinlaw yet. This obviously is going to be a make or break year for Kinlaw. I believe that is true, but I do think there's still some potential there. I haven't written him off yet personally. How do I see the running back shaking out if Laybourne is that good? I feel like it's hard to see them cutting Sermon and TDP back-to-back years. Is Jordan Mason safe? I think Jordan Mason is absolutely safe. I was watching, shout out Rich Madrid. He hooked me up with a bunch of Chris Forrester tape. So Chris Forrester is breaking down 49ers offensive line. And there was this one play that Forrester was breaking down about the blocking scheme, but he specifically was like, oh, we got a good young running back right here, and kind of gave Jordan Mason some praise and how he was able to. It was that one play against the Dolphins that one of my favorite Jordan Mason runs, where it was that play where he's pushing the hole. Brendel is on his block and he cuts at the last second off of Brendel's hip. It was that particular play that Chris Forrester was breaking down, and he had mentioned how, Jordan Mason did a really good job of pushing his gap, pushing the outside, and then cutting it back at the last second. I think Jordan Mason's a lock. I would be shocked. Jordan Mason's absolutely a lock. I think Mitchell's a lock. It's TDP is a huge question. Huge question. He right now has a ton of Trey Sermon vibes. And if Laybourne can come in and provide a different element, a different dynamic, I would not be surprised if they felt okay with letting TDP go. I mean, it would be a bad, terrible look for them to do that 2 years in a row with the 3rd round running back, where they could have gone somewhere else and taken definitely a more high-end position from a positional value standpoint. But I think Jordan's safe. Jordan's safe. TDP is on notice. I really do think he's on notice. He has potential. I've talked about it before. I think TDP has potential. He showed some glimmers of hope at the end of the year, but it can't be glimmers of hope. He has got to really show these guys that he deserves to be right now the fourth running back. He is not the third guy. He lost that to Jordan Mason, that's tough because that's an undrafted free agent beating out a third rounder. Um, that is that's a tough pill to swallow, right? That's a tough pill to swallow for those third round picks. So we know, I mean, right now we got another third round pick and Ambry Thomas is on notice. Like Ambry Thomas is early reports out of OTAs is he's looking cooked. So man, we got to start hitting on these third rounds, man. I believe in Danny Gray. I think Danny Gray is going to be fine. I think Danny Gray will have some more opportunities. Again, he's a little bit buried on the depth chart. I think Danny Gray's safe. I don't think he'll be cut. I think he makes the roster and I think he'll be fine. Might not have a huge production type year, but I do think he's like I think he's a primary gunner. I know he plays some special teams, but I do think Danny Gray is going to be fine. I think Danny Gray is going to have another pretty solid training camp. Remember, man, Danny Gray, like it was one training camp practice, but he was the best receiver on the field one of those days, and that was when Brandon Ayuk was going crazy. Uh, Danny Gray had a day where it was like touchdown, deep pass, over the middle, like just he had like 2 touchdowns, contested catch, back shoulder, high point. I was like, Danny put on a clinic one day. And is that going to translate right away? Not necessarily, but I see the talent. Like I see the ability. The ability is there. That's not the problem. It's just I think, acclimating to the offense, getting up to speed, doing what Kyle wants him to do. Rookies have famously just had a terrible time acclimating to Kyle's offense. You ask Debo, you ask like Ayuk was like the shining star. He had like 700 receiving yards as a rookie in that scheme. So I'm not too concerned about it. I'm really not. I think Danny's fine. He's holding it down right now for the third guy. I've heard good things about Burford too. I heard he's looking bigger. I heard he's looking a little bit more stout, which is great. Burford's problem has never been his traits. His problem has never been his physical makeup. So if he can continue to take those steps, it's like Groundhog Day with Burford. Burford has all the potential. Burford has Pro Bowl potential. He's one of those developmental prospects. I look at Burford as a developmental guy. From a physical standpoint, he's I think Trent said it. He's like a first round guy. Like he has from a physical standpoint, the traits are good. Like his traits are fantastic. I remember like he has put reps on tape where you're like, yes, it's there. There it is. There it is. There that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, Big B. But then he also has reps where you're like, that's not what I'm talking about. We need to have a different angle. We need to have different leverage. We need different placement. You know what I mean? But that's all correctable. He has the things that are unteachable, the things where he is my perception of where he's struggling are teachable things, learnable things, like things that he can improve, things that he can get better at that are technique based. And once he does that, then he will reach his ceiling. So if he's getting bigger and he's adding more size, that's great. The things that I want to know and I want to see are technically based with Burford. That's where my brain is at with Burford in perceiving if perceiving his improvement. Brock doing the under promising over deliver tactic. I think that's what they're all doing. I really do. I think it's they're not going to go over their skis. They're not going to go over their skis and say anything that they don't need to. I thought the injury takes 6 months. It takes 6 months typically to be back with live bullets, but it is 3-month recovery. He starts throwing at that point, so they typically want like a 3-month ramp up for him to be back. But it does sound like it sounds like based on how he's going, sounds like he might be ready to go in 2 months. So, it's good news. What are you voting me for? Sorry, I'm skipping past everything that doesn't have a question mark. And I'm way behind in the chat, so I'm totally missing this. Oh, it's funny. We just talked about that. Both of these guys are cut candidates. These are huge training camps for Ambry Thomas and TEP. They have potential, but they have to take that next step. And if they don't, it'll be interesting to see if the 49ers continue to keep them around or opt somewhere else. It's a big year for those two guys, I think. If they offered me the boombox job, would you take it, or is that too much pressure? I mean, if they offered it, I mean, I would be too good of an opportunity to turn down. I don't think they would ever offer me that job. I think they're much more deserving candidates than myself to be able to take on such a prestigious honor of leading out the 49ers with the boombox. But of course, if they said, Brad, we want you to do it, we want that ginger beard to lead the front of the line, of course I would do it. Would that ever happen? Probably absolutely not. Good stuff. All right, I'm trying to catch up. Will I be attending training camp this year? You know it. You know it. The goal is to be there every day. So the hope is I'll be there every day, watching, note taking, and evaluating. Obviously, big competitions at a lot of spots. Big competition at a lot of spots. So I think this year out of any year is like you don't have the luxury to be patient in training camp for these players. Like they don't have the luxury to they got to show out. Training camp I think is going to be high intensity. It just that's my vibe. It feels like it's going to be high intensity because so many guys are competing for spots. It feels like it's get your popcorn ready, man. Whether it's quarterback, tight end, offensive line, wide receiver, running back, linebacker, defensive line, cornerback, safety. It just feels like we got competition at like every room. Something's popping off. So to me, that sounds like a recipe for a fun training camp. Let's see. This one's going to be hard. I really do think this one's going to be hard. The 49ers are going to have some tough decisions because so what is going to be interesting about this quarterback rule is do they keep 3 quarterbacks with Brock, Trey, and Sam, or do maybe they move one of the quarterbacks and they keep Brock and whichever quarterback they keep, and then you keep Brandon Allen on the practice squad and he's your third quarterback? That will be interesting because if they would do that and they keep 2 quarterbacks and then they have the third floater, that would open up another wide receiver roster spot. Right now they're kind of jammed. with kind of being forced to carry 5 wide receivers, I think. So it's going to be an uphill battle for Bell, because just from the pure numbers aspect of it is I really do think they're only going to keep 5 wide receivers. That means someone like Ray McLeod would have to get beat out, Danny Gray, Jawan Jennings, someone like that, but I don't really see that happening. So it can happen, but he would have to have a fantastic training camp, and he would really have to beat someone out for that. So we'll see. We'll see. Who do I think is going to be our third? I talked about it earlier. I think it's Oren Burks. I think Oren Burks is going to be penciled in. I think the other guys are going to have opportunity to compete for it, but Oren has already proved to be that third guy, and I think that's where he slots in. But I think it'll be a little bit more interesting to see how Marcelino and the rookies slot in next year once OB and Flan are free agents. So it'll be interesting. But shout out to you guys. Good questions today. We haven't done a Q&A for a while. Shout out to SDS for the questions. Shout out to Terradome. Shout out to my boy Justin. 2 Justins. We got 2 Justins contributing super chats today. I appreciate you guys. Of course, appreciate all the super chats. Appreciate all the views. Appreciate all the likes, especially during this slow period of the year. You guys are the best. Shout out to the SDS. Shout out to the gang. I know I dropped some ums today, and I thank you for dealing with it and moving through it. But shout out the gang. Shout out SDS. Shout out everyone. We're still gonna find things to talk about. He said jumps. Oh my gosh. Grab your cookies on the way out. Smash that like button on the way out. Appreciate you guys as always. What's tomorrow? State of the franchise tomorrow. Okay, we got State of the franchise tomorrow. All that good stuff. Appreciate y'all for tapping in as always. I'm out of here for now. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it.